Hey everybody, I am Robert Donovan. Welcome to this episode of Tradecraft Solutions. Sorry, I've been trying to commit to a once-a-month release cycle here and missed it by a day this time, but we will work to do better in the future. In this episode, we are going to finish the Altors, which is the name I've given to that ship. Those who are Star Wars fans will know where that comes from. But I am going to finish the rest of the ship today in this video, and then in future videos we're going to look at materials and compositing. So this is where we left off in the original video. Unfortunately, I inadvertently deleted the file I used for part 1 of this series, and I had to do it from memory because I didn't have internet access where I was when I realized it was gone. And I wanted to get ready for this episode here. So when I did finally get internet access back, I discovered that part of what I did on the front forks, I used the Inset Faces tool when I did the new file. On the one I did in the previous video, I just did scaling and extruding. And there's going to be one little difference in this tutorial because of that. I will get to it in its proper place. It's not hard. I just want to make sure you're aware of it. And anyone coming to this for the first time, if this is the first video you're looking at, you're going to find some differences perhaps. So to get started then, let's go ahead. We're going to go to, if you're not in Edge Select mode, go there already. And just to get the preliminaries out of the way, I have my screencast keys running, which is good. And so you can see what I'm doing down here. Anything that doesn't show up, I will try to remember to tell you. If you are on a machine that does not have a dedicated set of numpad keys, you want to go to File, User Preferences, and go to Input and make sure this checkbox is checked, which says Emulate Numpad. That will make the keys across the top of your computer act like numpad keys when they need to be and regular keys when they do not. The other thing I recommend you have activated is the 3D View 3D Navigation add-on right here. Make sure that checkbox there is ticked. What that does for you is it gives you this navigation tab over here on the tool shelf, which gives you the ability to do stuff from just by clicking on these buttons here that you would do with the numpad keys if you want to use that. And again, I am using the Science Lab theme, which is why my interface will probably look different from yours. Once you have set all this stuff up, click Save User Settings if you want it to survive shutting down Blender and starting up again. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and do Shift Alt right click and select that loop of vertices right here. I just switched recently to Blender 2.76b. I do kind of like it. We're going to go to numpad 3 here, and that brings us to, I'm also in orthographic mode here, and you get to that by pressing numpad 5. So that's perspective mode. That's numpad 5, and now you're into orthographic mode. And so let's hold the Shift key down, press the middle mouse, and move this over a bit. Zoom in just a touch. And now what we're going to do is create the main hull section of this ship. I did say in the first video that the most complicated part of this was really doing the front forks, and really it is. The rest of this is just basically extrude, grab, and scale. So we're going to do a bunch of extrusions here all in a row. I look at these ships as a set of modules. Again, they're part of a novel I'm writing, but there's a set of modules here. We have 2 launch bay modules and a main hull module. To make the first launch bay module, we hit E to extrude, hit Y to constrain it to the Y-axis, press the number 1 on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. Then hit E to extrude again, hit Y to constrain it, and then do 10 on the numbers and Enter key, and then E to extrude Y1 again. That's one fighter bay module. Next we have the main hull section connecting basically the bow and the stern. So extrude Y3 8 and Enter. And then we're going to put one more fighter bay module on the end of that. So extrude Y1, Enter, extrude Y10, Enter, and extrude Y1, Enter. Lastly, we're going to put a little extrusion here, which we're going to use to connect the engines to all of this. So extrude Y 0.25, really little one, hit the enter key. Okay, now that is our main hull for the ship. Now, when I did the front forks section in part 1, there was a bit of surface detail that was missing from it. And to make that surface detail, which we're going to do in this video, we need to add a couple of loop cuts going lengthwise along the ship from bow to stern. So with your mouse cursor somewhere in the near the rear of the ship, do Control R and then double left click, and then go down here underneath. Do the same thing, Control R, double left click. And we're also going to extend that loop all the way around the front too. And to do that, let's zoom in here. Excuse me while I get this situated here. And we're going to zoom right in here. And hit down here, go to face select mode. Right click to select that face, press the X key and then the F key to delete that face. Now here's where we come to the part that is going to be different if you built this thing following part 1. So do Control Tab V to go to vertex mode here. And what you'll notice is if you're picking up where we left off from part 1 to follow this tutorial, you'll see that on mine, I only have 5 vertices that are actually connected to this long edge on the inside of the front fork here. It's these 5, that one, that one, that one, and that one. These 2 here that go to the inner rails on the inside of the front fork, because I used the Inset Faces tool to create these, and I was doing it from memory, and I forgot that I had used Extrude and Scale when I did it in the video in part 1. All of these vertices here, these vertices that are not connected to the edge on mine, will be connected on yours, and you want to select all of them along with these 5. So select all the vertices on these edge, on this inner edge, that are connected to it if you followed part 1. In addition to those, hold the Shift key down and select each of these, and then once you have all the vertices selected, hit F. Whoops, forgot a vertex there. Do Control Z. Grab that vertex there, and then hit F to create a face, like so. And also then select these 4 like this, holding Shift key down, and hit F, like that. What that does is give us a loop of vertices that goes all the way around. If you do Shift Alt, like that, it goes all the way around, which is useful for the next couple of parts we're going to be doing here later on. So with that done, do a numpad 3 to go back to side view, hit A to deselect everything, do it a couple of times. Usually if you select something and you hit A, that'll deselect it, but I do it 2 more times like that to make sure that if I forget to deselect something else, I have nothing selected this way. So let's go ahead and hold the Shift and middle mouse down, zoom in a little bit here so we can see what we're doing. And let's go to face select mode. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create the fighter bays themselves. So right click to select this face, hold the Shift key down, right click to select that second face, and now we're going to change the pivot point from median, which is the default, to individual origins. And with your cursor in the viewport, let's hit the I key because we're going to bring up that Inset Faces tool I was talking about a moment ago. Hold the Shift key down and then very slowly move your mouse towards that center point that dotted line is going to, and do it just a little. You only want a little bit like that, and then left click to lock that in. With those faces still selected, hit S to scale 0.95. And then hit the Enter key, or left click, either way will work. And that creates the first part of the fighter bays. Now do a Control numpad 1 to go to rear view. Move this to the center here, zoom in some so that you can see what I'm doing. And now we're going to hit E to extrude, hit X to constrain it to the X axis, and then pull this out about 1 full grid unit should be enough. Left click to lock that in and go back to numpad 3. Zoom out a little bit so you can see both faces. And, excuse me, and we're going to hit the Inset Faces tool again, so hit I. To do that, hold the Shift key down and once again bring this in. About the same distance, maybe a little bit less is fine. Left click to lock that in, hit S to scale, 0.95 again, and hit enter. Then again, control numpad 1, and this time we're going to extrude X and we're just going to pull it the other way. We're going to go straight into there, about like that. Left click to lock that in, and those are the fighter bays. Let's go ahead and hit A to deselect those faces. Now hit numpad 3 one more time, and that gets you your side view again. Now the next thing we need to do is go to Edge Select Mode, or actually not yet, sorry, my bad. Let's go ahead and move this so we're looking at it at this angle here. And now we're going to hit the C key to bring up our Paint Select tool and just hold it so that it's covering all 6 of these faces here, and left click once to select those faces, and do the same thing with these back here. Left click again, then right click to lock that in. And now do numpad 1 to go to front view. And what we're going to do is we're going to extrude, E to extrude there, hit S to scale, Shift Y, because we don't want this to extend front and back, just top and bottom, and then do 1.15, and then left click to lock that in. Now with that done, grab the X here and move this thing until it is just even. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing and make this really exact. You want it to be just even with that first grid unit past the end of the fighter bay there. So just take that like that, just like that, and then we want to hold the Shift key down and right click and deselect these faces here. Go back to numpad 1, and then you want to grab the X handle and pull this front one out about another half grid unit. Hold the Shift key down for this. You'll find it much easier. Whoops. There we go. And pull it out about like that far. And that is your front fork section done for that. If you do numpad 7, you can see this thing. The idea is that this extends out just a little bit past this, and it looks like we need to extend this out a little bit farther. And we will deselect these guys because we're done with them. And go to numpad 7 again here and go G to grab, X to constrain to the X-axis, and just pull that out to that first grid unit there. Okay, that takes care of the first part of that. Now let's move the edges so that they're shrouding the fighter bays a little bit. Do a numpad 3 and go to Edge Select Mode like this. Right click once to select that edge, hold the Shift key down to select this edge. Now we're going to change the pivot point, I should say, back to the median point. And then I want to do S to scale, Y to constrain to the Y-axis. And you'll see this outer rectangle and this inner rectangle go about halfway across that inner rectangle like this. Just like so. And then if you shift middle mouse down the Y-axis here and right-click and select that edge, do the same thing, pull it over about halfway across like that. Like so. And because these vertices are crossing a little bit, you've got a little bit of normals problem, and the easiest way I have found, if you look at this numpad 7, zoom out a little bit, you'll see that we've got the shrouding effect, but the vertices are a little bit crossed, so you've got a bit of a normals issue going on. I have found a real easy way to fix that, And to do that, we're going to go back to face select mode, which is down here. And once again, we're going to select, go to C, and we will select this one, select those three, right-click to lock that in. And then all we're going to do here is we are going to extrude, just do extrude, enter, and I'm just going to select this face and this face right here, go to numpad 1, and I'm going to grab along the x-axis, hold the shift key down. You only want to, whoops, got to click first and then hold the shift key down. And then pull both of these out just about 1/8 of a grid unit, tiny little amount there. And then deselect all of those faces and do the same thing for the tops and bottoms. And I do this we'll do this using the z-axis this time. And again, just pop it up a tiny little bit. I keep pushing the shift key before I click the mouse button. Don't do that. There we go. And then on the bottom, numpad 1 again, and this time we will click and then hit the shift key. There we are. And then reselect these just a little, each of these, go to numpad 1, and then pull the whole thing out, again, just a tiny bit, like that. And that gets rid of the worst of the normals problems. If you go to numpad 3 and then hit A to deselect, all of a sudden you don't have the shadowing on the normals anymore, so that gets rid of that, and that's an easy way to do it. It also gives it a kind of nice look, like they don't come to quite sharp corners. It looks more like it's constructed of panels than a bunch of stuff coming to sharp corners. It's just my preference, but I like that look a little bit better myself. All right, so next step, we have now got the fighter bays and the shrouds, which are going to be the weapons rails, by the way. We're going to be next doing the bridge. So select this face, this face, this face, and this face. Wait a second, forgot I need to add a loop cut here. So deselect everything, Control R, and now we need to add a loop cut here and move it about 5 grid units down the y-axis right there. Left click to lock that in, and because that's reflecting the fact that I have moved a few vertices around, let's do S to scale Y 0. There we go. SY 0 is the sequence there. And now go to face select mode and select these faces right there. All right, so let us now go to Control Numpad 1. And we want to raise this up the same height as the back of the barn there. So we're going to extrude along the z-axis, so E to extrude. And by default, it wants to extrude along the normals. If you hit the Z key, that gets rid of it. If you hit it again, it's now extruding along the global Z, which is what we want. And so now we will pull this up, and then right as we get close, I'm going to hold the shift key down and make that exactly even. I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to move this to the center and zoom in so we get really, really close. And I can see exactly what I'm doing here, and grab this, hold the shift key down, move it up like that so it's exactly even, or as close as I can get it easily. And now we're going to extrude again to the very top here. So hit E to extrude, Z twice to get the global Z, and then hold the shift key down. I guess you don't have to hold the shift key down yet, but extrude it up, and when you get close, then hold the shift key down. And just pull this thing right up, left click to lock that in, and that takes care of that. And let's zoom out just a little, and I'll zoom back in. And now we're going to right click to select that face, that face, that face, and that face, and control numpad 1 again. And then we're going to hit E to extrude, hit X to constrain to the X-axis, and then pull this thing out so it's even with the overhang on the barn there, like that. Left click to lock it in, and then grab the Z, and I'd hold the Shift key down all the way for this one. Just like that. Okay, and so that gets us our roof on the bridge here. So now let's go to the front, grab that face, hold Shift key down, grab that face, or select that face, do a numpad 3, and then pull this thing forward about 2, oops, actually we got to extrude first, so extrude Y, and pull this thing forward a grid unit or 2, like that. 2 grid units is what I'm using there. And finally, let's move this here. Okay, that creates, let's zoom out a little bit. A little more. All right. Now, what we want to do is select this face, hold the Shift key down, select these 2 faces right here, and I want to pull this up 1 grid unit. So just go like this. Like that. All right, and now I want to hold Shift right click, and then I want to take these 2 faces and pull them up. Let's zoom in just a little bit here. And I want to pull these up just about half a grid unit. So grab the Z, and don't extrude here, we're just pulling. A little less than half a grid unit, that'll do that. Then Shift right click, deselect that face. And the next thing we want to do is extrude this thing in the Z axis, so hit E to extrude, and you do have to hit Z twice because it is now, you can't see it, but it is trying to extrude along the normal, so hit Z again, now it's going to go straight up. And I want to extend this up just about 3/4 of a grid unit there, something like that. Let's move this down a little bit, left Shift middle mouse there. All right, now I want to hit S to scale and do 0.9, like so, and then grab the Y and make it so that this front bit is just exactly straight there. There we go. And now we're going to extrude up again, so hit E to extrude, hit the Z key twice, and now we're going to go up I'd say about 3 times the width of this thing, maybe a little more. And then we are going to hit S to scale, hit Z, and then hit 0. Left click to lock that in, and then pull this thing up. Not quite as far, about 2.5 grid units there, I guess we're looking at, or 2 grid units there. All right, now hit S to scale 0.8. All right, and then grab along the Y-axis, and this time we want to pull this 1 grid unit forward of the section below it there, like that. And now we want to go numpad 1, and we want to scale this thing in along the X-axis. So it has to scale, hit X. See, I told you this wasn't complicated. All right, so we do that, and left click to lock that in. That's about 3 1/4, 3 1/3 grid units on either side of the main axis there, the Z-axis. So that takes care of that. Go back to numpad 3, and then we're going to extrude this in the Z-axis. Again, hit it twice. And we're going to take this up about 2 full grid units here. And then we're going to hit S to scale 0.6. And then left click to lock that in. And then pull this forward until the front is vertical, exactly straight. Like that. All right, now let's go numpad 1, see what we've got here, and let's scale this thing in the X a little bit too. So scale X, and bring it in just about, so it's 4 grid units wide. They're a little less. All right, now with that, go ahead and select these two front faces here. Go to numpad 3, extrude along the Y-axis. It's E to extrude, and then hit the Y key and take this out. It's 1.5 isn't quite enough. 2 is a little too long, so somewhere in between. Every time I do this slightly differently, but it's somewhere in between there, like that. And then with that done, hit S to scale, 0.4, and then left click to lock that in. Numpad 1 to go to front view, and then scale, hit S to scale along the X-axis, 0.1. Right, take it right in there, and then go to edge select mode. Select this edge, and then do scale X 0. Straighten it up. And then go back to face select mode. Select this face. Go to numpad 3, and then do scale Y 0 to make sure that that face is completely straight. Now underneath here, let's go to vertex mode, or vertex select mode. Select this vertex right here, go to numpad 3, and then pull it down just a touch so you can just see that line coming from the front there. All right, now with that done, do Control R and left click once, and then move it just about like that, about a 1/4 of a grid unit past that one there, and then do a scale Shift Y 1.5. There we go. Right, not a 1.5, I'm sorry. Hang on a moment here, Control Z, do a scale Shift Y 1.15. There we go. Sorry about that. And go back to face select mode. So now that is the bridge. So we're doing pretty well here. We've got the barn, we've got the main bay, we've got the front forks and the weapons rails done. We got the fighter bays and the bridge. And now let's do the engines. All right, so the engine section here. Well, actually, we're going to do the first part of the engine section. I wanted the way I saw it. I'm going to do the under bay, the basement, as I call it. But the way I size that is by doing the first part of the engines before that. So let's go to edge select mode here. Zoom in, and we want to select this end loop of edges here. So Shift Alt right click, and then go to Control numpad 1. And what we want to do here is scale this thing and extrude. So we want to do E to extrude, S to scale, and I'm scaling until that middle point there, just there, I'm scaling until this point hits the top of this ridge here. All right, so now what we want to do is Shift right click to deselect that edge, and Shift right click to deselect this edge. And the problem with this is we've now got it high enough, but if you go to front view, this thing's a little bit wider than I want it. So let's do Control numpad 1. And what we're going to do is with these two edges deselected, we're going to hit S to scale, and then going to scale this in the X-axis, and we're going to take this in about 2 grid units here, like that. There you go. And that kind of brings everything back into line. Maybe take this, let's do scale X and take this out, maybe another 1/4 grid unit just to make it a half. There we go. Give it just that little bit of a bump in the middle there. All right, so now the next step here is to create this undercarriage there, that big fighter bay going along the underside of the ship. And so now what we have to do is go to face select mode, and we want to zoom in. Let's zoom in here. Actually, let me deselect that. You want to select one of these edges here between faces. Put your cursor right there. Shift-Alt right-click, and do the same thing on this part we just extruded here, and do a Shift-Alt right-click to select all of that, like so. Numpad 3. And now we want to pull this whole thing down about one full grid unit. So hit G to grab, hit Z to constrain to the Z-axis, and pull this whole thing down just about one grid unit there, like that. And that should do just nicely. If you zoom out, the top of this now is right where it needs to be. It's just a little bit farther. It's the mid-range between that first part of the bridge there, which is where I wanted it. So now we go to Numpad 3 again, and the next thing we need to do is grab these faces here, and we're going to grab, let's see, which faces do we want? I want that one, 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 and that one. Alrighty. So let's do a Numpad 3 again, and I want to pull this down about half a grid unit. And I'm actually pulling this down until these two lines appear to be even. They're actually not quite, but that's this way we avoid any vertices crossing that we don't want to. But that gets us that little bit of extra girth on the bottom there that I want. All right, so now I'm going to shift right click and deselect all of the faces on the outside here, leaving just the middle ones. Go to Numpad 3 again. And then we're going to grab in the Z-axis and make this all straight, even on the bottom there. Shift key again, an invaluable asset. Okay, that takes care of getting the bottom part the way I want it. And I think in the original ship, I had I really pulled a lot of edges and vertices around, which is one of the reasons why it looks a little pinched in some of at some angles. I'm trying to avoid that this time. Plus, I want to make that bottom bay a little bit bigger across. So what I'm going to do, instead of adding, in the original version of this ship, I added a couple of loop cuts along the bottom here. And so what I think I'm going to do instead is just leave this the way it is now. I'm going to go ahead and select these two faces again. So shift right click because I want to hold on to all the other faces there. So now I have all of these faces here. So zoom out. And I want to take this to a Numpad 1. And now I'm going to grab the Z. I'm not going to extrude here. I'm just going to take this straight like this. Okay, now I'm going to scale along the X, so hit S to scale, X to constrain it. And I'm trying to get these lines kind of parallel here, the bottom bits. All right, and now I'm going to take and grab along the Z-axis and pull it down a little farther, like that. Okay, that'll work now. The other thing I want to do, go to Edge Select Mode here. And oh, by the way, you can go to Edge Select Mode. This is Vertex Select, this is Edge Select, this is Face Select, and those are the buttons down here. The other way to do that is Control-Tab, which is why you're seeing this menu come up when I do this, just in case anyone was confused by that. A little late to mention that now, but there it is. All right, so next thing we want to do, let's go to Edge Select Mode here. This will be easier. Select this edge, and let's select that edge right there. Okay, so now do a Numpad 3, move this where you can see it, and you want to take this Z, grabbing the Z here, and pull this up I got going on here? Let's just watch that for a minute here. Let me pull this up like that. Numpad 3. Ooh, okay, don't want that far. I want this thing more or less straight. There we go. Yes. Now, with that, I want to put up just a little more here. Now we go to vertex mode. I want to grab that vertex, and that simultaneously will grab this vertex on the other side, and I want to pull it down like that, just like that. All right, so we go to Numpad 1. That is how we're looking there. These faces are basically flat. This one is slanting towards us just a little bit. So now let's go to face select mode here. Select these two faces, hit the X key, and then F to delete those two faces. And then go to edge select mode, Shift Alt right click, and that selects that hole, the edges around that hole we just made, and then do extrude scale 0.9. Left click to lock that in. Now if we go to Numpad 3, we have a little bit of work to do here. Let's also go ahead for the moment and turn off limit selection to visible. And what I want to do is extrude Y, and I want to do this forward about 2 grid units, I suppose, maybe 3. Let's do 3. There we go. Now we want to scale, hit S to scale, hit Y to constrain, and then hit 0 to straighten that all up. Hit Enter, and then scale 0.8. And then left click to lock that in. Okay, very nice. Now we want to extrude scale 0.9 again. Numpad 3, so we can see what we're doing, and then hit extrude Y, and then just take this thing, and then left click to lock that in. And if you want to zoom out, move this like so, you can actually extend this all the way back like that. All right, so there we have that big underneath bay there. So now just hit F to face the back of that off. Numpad 1, shift middle mouse to bring this more to the center. Going to move this up here. Next thing we want to do, and we're still in edge select mode, I want to grab that face right, or that edge rather, right there. Move this normally here so we've got this dead on, and I want to make this thing level. So pull this up in the Z axis here. Oops, did I miss a... Oh, hang on. Let's turn limit selection to visible back on. And yeah, I did. Got the wrong one. So let's... There we go. Okay. That's the danger of turning off limit selection to visible. Looks cool, but there we go. All right, so Numpad 1. And let's pull this thing up. Like that. Okay, very nice. Now, and as you will see in the actual picture of the ship here, it's got it has this little dip in the front here, and this lit section here. I'm going to do the loop cuts for that part there, and we're going to create the dip now. So we're going to go ahead here and go back to turning off limit selection to visible. Control R. There we go. Left click, and I'm just going to left click again, go to Numpad 3, and then I'm just going to grab this thing along the Y-axis and move it until it is right even with that line there. And then I'm going to go back here, do Control R again, and left click to lock that in, Numpad 3. And then I'm going to bring this about 1.5 grid units, should do just fine. Like that. And then if you go in here, yes, you've got that. Bring it a little bit forward, like so. Yeah. All right, so that's that. And that will also form the basis. We're going to go to vertex mode, going to form the basis for creating that little dip from that front section there. So we will go to numpad 1, and we're going to try and make this line and this line parallel with this line and this line. So we'll just pull it down, hold the shift key to get the fine control here. Like so, and there you have it. So that is the main underbay there, just like that. Now let's finish up the engines. And let's go to Control Numpad 1, move this down, and let's see how many grid units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This needs to be just a little bit wider. We will go ahead then and grab these vertices here and just pull this about a half a grid unit farther down like that. Now if you want to make this bay a little deeper, you could do that, but since I've already put it together, I'm going to leave it the way it is. So there's that. We got a few normals issues going on here, I do believe. Yes, we do. Let's do limit selection to visible. Oh, did I pull down the wrong vertex? Yes, I did. Okay, hang on here. Hang on. Just 1 second here. Those two vertices should not have moved. Oh, that's what the problem was. Okay, let's deselect that vertex. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, I left that front vertex selected, so when I moved these down, it moved that vertex too. Forgot to deselect it. So let's try this again. Select these vertices here, just like that. Grab the Z. Control Numpad 1. Yeah, that's good enough. We want that just a little bit down there. You could also, if you wanted to make this thing just a little steeper on the sides, you could pull this down a little farther and then maybe pull this part down in the front a little bit more. Like from, you could do, I'll just show you, easiest to do. In face, if you wanted to make this a little steeper, you could grab these faces here, and with this thing pulled down, you could pull this whole thing down a little farther and make this a little steeper on the sides. You could also just pull this down a little bit here, like that, and give it that kind of look if you want to do that. We'll keep that one in there. Why not? And that way you kind of have that little bulge on the bottom there, if you like that sort of thing. Anyway, that's let's get the engines finished. So with those out of the way, with this pulled where we want it, you could do a numpad 3, hit A to deselect here, and we want edge select mode here. Select this outer loop of vertices, Shift Alt right click, numpad 3 again, and now we want to extrude Y minus 0.25, enter. Then we want to hit S to scale 1.02, left click or enter to lock that in, and then E to extrude, S to scale 1.03. Left click to lock that in, and now we want to hit E to extrude along the Y axis, so hit Y to constrain it, and you want 23. I think I did. There we go. Let's see. That's about right. Okay. So 23 there. So now let's go back and get a view of the back here. And what we want to do now is create those nozzles for the engine. So hit E to extrude, S to scale, 0.95, left click. Now go to Control Tab or come down here. We want to go to vertex mode. Select that vertex, and just those two. So make sure, hit A to deselect everything because you just want these two. Select that one, and then hit F to create a face. Now we want to turn clipping off. All right, make sure you have clipping off for this part here. And now do a Shift-Alt, right-click, select that entire loop of vertices, and we want to go extrude, so hit E to extrude, S to scale, 0.9, and then left-click to lock that in, then do Control-3, and let's turn limit selection to visible back off, because we're going to need it shortly. Now pull this about 1 grid unit out, like so. Alrighty. Now we want to do extrude scale 0.9, 5. Left click to lock that in. And then go numpad 3 or Alt or Control numpad 3, whichever you want to do it, doesn't matter. And then do extrude Y, and then pull this thing in just about 1 vertex's width past this line is my extremely scientific measurement there. All right, so now you have that, and let's go and do a scale 0.8 in like that. Okay, and then extrude Y. And we want that just inside there, like that. And then S to scale 0.9. And then extrude scale 0.95 again. And I think you're kind of getting the idea here. Let's do a numpad 3 and do extrude Y. Pull this thing back till it's just 1 vertex width in front of this line. And do a S to scale 0.9. And then extrude E, S to scale, how do I want to do this? 0.5, 0.4, let's go 0.5. Is that, and by the way, those are not holes, those are normals issues, but we'll fix that momentarily. And let's see, is that a little too small? That's a little too small. Let's go then, let's do extrude scale 0.6. Yeah, like that better. Okay, so with that done, we will have that out of the way. And now I want to take this thing forward one more time for that inner nozzle. So let's extrude Y. Take it out like that. S to scale 0.9. Try that again. S to scale 0.9. Yes. And then E to extrude, S to scale 0.9 on this one. And one last time we're going to, extrude Y. So hit E to extrude Y, pull this thing back, like so, and then F to face it off. There you are. And now let's hit A to select everything, go up here to shading and UVs and recalculate those normals. And then that apart. So now we have everything we need. And let's do a control or a shift, a control tab E to go to edge select mode. And those are the engines. The last thing we need to do is we need to create this little rearward shroud here, which I think is probably easier to see if we look at this thing here. This bit here is the part we got to do next. And let's see, that's got, a couple of those there. really sharp and then kind of blunt, right? Yeah, it's really sharp and then kind of blunt and then flares up a little bit on top and bottom. Okay, we can do this. So to do that, go to face select mode, deselect everything, because we don't need to do that anymore. And why do those normals look even weirder now? I think I might have accidentally flipped them. But there we go. Those are the new normals. Actually, let's go up here and see. There is a way we could tell. If we go to display, we display the normals. Yes, okay. They're all going the right direction, which is what we want. Yep, they are. Okay, very good. So we don't need to worry about that then. Okay, good. So moving on, we want to select this row of faces here. So here we have Shift-Alt, and here, Shift-Alt, right-click, come on now. Now, Shift-Alt, right-click. Okay, let's try this one. There we go. Yes, so pick a different edge then. Oh, I probably had a problem because of all the different geometry coming off that vertex there. All right, so that takes care of selecting that. Now what do we do with it? Let's just do E to extrude and then hit the Enter key. That's all we got to do for this first part here. Now we want to deselect these faces on the very end here. So Shift, right-click, Shift, right-click, and Shift, right-click, like that. All right, now do numpad 7. And let's get this where we can see it. And we're going to pull this thing along the y-axis. About like that. And then we're going to deselect these faces. So deselect this one. Deselect that one. Back to numpad 7. Pull these things till they're almost even, like that. Okay. And let's go around here like so. And go to edge select mode. I want to just select this edge and this edge down here. Go back to numpad 7. Move this down. And take this out. Take a little more if you want more of a bowl, more of a point at the end. It's kind of up to you, but there you go. That's the back end of the engines there. So that is pretty much how you do that ship. It's not real tough. As I said, I keep things very simple. The more complex your models are, I find the more trouble you tend to get into, so I tend to go for simple whenever and wherever possible on stuff like this. I did not use a subsurf modifier for this to keep the number of vertices down, plus I didn't want to have to mess with marking seams and edges. You could do a subsurf modifier with this and then go ahead and use mean creases to make it look a little smoother, but I kind of like this look. Pardon me there while I take a drink of water. So that is the finished Altors. Let's do a numpad 3 here. And the thing that's weird about this is now the thing looks a little stocky in the front. I think I might have made those engines just a tad long. We will balance that out. There is a trick I have discovered we could use to balance that out. Go to vertex select mode here, zoom in. And let's see here. Yes. Now hit B to box select, grab these vertices right here, go to numpad 3, and whoops, we are still selected something in the back there. Let's try this one more time. Go to box select mode, grab that bunch of vertices right on the front there, numpad 3, there we go. And let's pull this forward about 2 grid units. Doesn't need to be much, just needs to be enough to get that front of that ship looking a little bit heavier. There we go. Just enough to balance the scales. Do Shift Tab or Control Tab and go to Edge Select mode. And hits Tab into. Now, we don't have any surface detail on it yet, so it still looks kind of like, modeling clay weird. Looks like kind of normals issue here. Let's tab back in here and go to Face Select mode. Grab these faces here. And just flip the direction of those normals. Like that. Now go back to that. There we go. Oh, another normals issue here. So we got to deal with that. And let's flip those. There we go. Okay, maybe we can live with that. Okay, so that is the ship. That's how I did it. Not hard. And it's nice because you'll notice that you don't have, take a look at the number of edges and vertices you've got here. Right? That's going to be a real easy ship to animate. Even after we add the surface detail, you're not going to have more than a couple thousand vertices here at most. In fact, it may not even have that much. But we're going to do that the next video. We're going to add the surface detail. We're going to add, I'm going to show you how I added all of these panels and the lights and the different materials and all of that. We'll get into the how to make it look a little less cartoony, very little less cartoony, because I realize it does kind of look that way in this picture. But there you are. But that's the ship, folks. That's how you do it. And here we'll turn off limit selection to visible here. That should give me a cool thumbnail. All right, so now that's the ship, folks. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've discovered a few techniques. There's not anything really earth-shattering that I'm doing with this, but I hope you found it fun or useful or at least a little bit amusing. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And until then, may the balance of your day be awesome. We will see you next time.